Yeah, so MLB trade deadline this week and NBA draft, but I do definitely want to talk about the MLB trade deadline.
Yeah.
You're a White Sox fan, and a guy that I really thought would have fit well, Adam Frazier, did not go to the White Sox.
Nope.
But you have your eyes on another guy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I think it's pretty clear if you're looking at it from a White Sox perspective, just based off, I'll just talk about them to start because they're one of the teams that I think just needs to add. They've got a hole at second base now that Nick Madrigal's out. They obviously got Eloy Jimenez back last night, and Luis Roberts should be back in the coming weeks, so they're gonna have their outfield figured out. But they're missing anything out of second base. Larry Garcia had a good month of June, and then he's been terrible since the All-Star break. And then you got Danny Mendick there, those guys are both solid, okay backups, right? But if you're looking to actually compete for a World Series championship, like, you can't have that hole in your lineup, especially when you have teams like the Padres who are adding Adam Frazier and just going to put him in the lineup somehow. He's not even going to play second base. He's probably going to play the outfield for them.
Yeah.
Just because he's that good of a hitter. So he's going to make that lineup that much better and lengthen that lineup out where you have no holes in that lineup. So it's really interesting. If I'm looking at the White Sox, I'm looking at Trevor Story. If you don't, Eduardo Escobar had a chance, I think, but it sounds like that all that might have fell through with him because it sounds like the Diamondbacks wanted Zach Collins as a part of the trade, but then Yasmani Grandal got hurt, so then suddenly the White Sox need Zach Collins to be their starting catcher, and so they can't trade him. And then it sounds like Evan Marshall was going to be part of that deal as well, and then he got hurt as well. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but that'd be another one that I would go for. And then they need bullpen help. They need right-handed bullpen help. They've got what I would say 2.5 pitchers down to the bullpen right now.
I do like Crochet quite a bit.
Crochet's good. Michael Kopech is good, and then Liam Hendricks is good. And I give Crochet the half because he's been inconsistent this year, but he's good. So they need.
It's always good to have those guys. I mean, obviously, you're putting a lot of pressure, and you have pretty good starters, but you're putting pressure on just those three guys, the 7, 8, and 9. And now, I think that's kind of been part of the Tigers' success. Obviously, the last 4 games are on a 4-game skid, but they have Funkhauser and Cisnero and Soto to finish games. And I think those are pretty good bullpen arms to round out, but you have to rely on
you got to get your starters through 6, which is it's doable. It's not like it's the White Sox their starters have gone deeper than any other team in the MLB this year, so their starting pitching is not a problem. It's getting the ball to Liam Hendricks, who has been arguably the best. I mean, he's an all-star closer. He got the save in the All-Star game, so it's not like he's been a problem. But you got to get him to get the ball to him, right? And they're even using him for two inning saves lately, just because it's like you got to get the ball to him, which is fine, whatever. But you got to be able to rely on more than just 2 guys.
I was going to say Kopech. You can't keep throwing Kopech and Crochet out there every single night.
They're both rookies. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, great arms, but you just can't do that. So they got to add another bullpen arm or 2. But I think I would say just because in the recent games, even leading up to the All-Star break and these last few games, they just haven't been scoring enough runs at all. And I would say a big reason for that is they have holes in their lineup. They have automatic outs almost in their lineup right now. Obviously, still got some guys hurt, but they need to add. It's going to be interesting though, getting through looking at like the entirety of the MLB. There's teams that are on the verge of either being sellers or maybe they're just kind of towing the line of being sellers versus buyers. The Yankees are an example. Are they too far back, in the AL East when there's 4 pretty good teams in the AL East, I would say, but 2 of them are probably going to have to end up being sellers. The Yankees and the Blue Jays, they're probably looking at being sellers at this point because, the Rays and the Red Sox have just dominated and they just keep adding, right? The Rays just added Nelson Cruz. So, and they've won, I think they're 5-1 since adding Nelson Cruz, and he's been a beast. So,
and as of now, even the Cubs, it appears they're going to be sellers with Andrew Chafin already out. But they've got 6 guys they could send out, I think, potentially. Yeah. And one of them's already out of there. But the problem with the NL Central is besides the Brewers, you have the Cardinals and the Reds and the Cubs all there at 500. They're all within like a game of each other. And then the bottom is obviously the Pirates. But it's hard to feel like when you're a 500 team, you're just let's toss it in, let's try to rebuild on prospects again.
Well, especially if you're a team that like has struggled with injury, or a team that's like, man, I know these guys are good, but they just haven't put it together yet, right now this year. And it's like, or if you're a team where, even maybe the top of your division hasn't been as great this year, maybe they haven't, blown anybody away. And it's like, man, you feel like you're in it, but at the same time, you just aren't that good, so you're just sitting there, you have some back and forth. Another team, the Tigers are an interesting team because you got to love where they're sitting as far as they're playing a lot better. Obviously, they've struggled the past week, but playing a lot better baseball than a lot of teams thought. But it's like, they're not going to win anything this year. So they got to pick and choose. They're a team where you got to pick and choose who do you trade, because there's going to be teams calling for Jonathan Schoop.
There could be teams that call for Robbie Grossman right now.
Yeah, Jeimer Candelario and Robbie Grossman might even have a market for them. Do you sit there? Do you maybe trade one of the relievers?
Yeah, Cisnero is a Cisnero and Soto. Like maybe.
Maybe. I mean, Soto was an all-star. You sit there and it's like, do you capitalize on that to build for the future? And I think the Tigers are kind of in a tough spot where it's like, who do they see sticking around for the future, right? Who do they? Because really, their future.
I feel they think. Well, Avila's already said he feels the rebuild is up, especially once you get Dylan Dingler up at catcher and you get Torkelson at the corner infield, and then you have Riley Green, fielding in the outfield. So it's like, I feel like you get those hitters up, you maybe need one more good pitcher to come up and like a second baseman, especially if you're
they need to go get a shortstop this offseason. So, there's thoughts of Carlos Correa, there's thoughts of other things, but, there's still an adjustment period for those young guys when they get up. So I would say they got to be looking their window if they really – we'll see how the rest of this year goes. And then I would say they still are – I don't think they're going to be, pushing for an AL Central next year, but I would say 2 years from now they could be. You know what I mean? So that if you're looking at it if you're Avila, you're sitting there, you're going, okay, which one of these guys on this team is going to be there 2 years from now when we might actually legitimately have a chance to be, pushing for a division title? That's what you have to look at. Because even next year, like let's say Schoop is still there next year, he's not old, but he's not young, right? So it's like, if he's still there next year, what's the point of, if he's not going to be there 2 years from now? You know what I mean? You might as well capitalize on it now. And
Scope's 29, so it's you got to start thinking about that.
Right, and it's not like I don't know. They're in a tough spot because a lot of their team is young. You don't want to get rid of a whole lot of that, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if they, I'd say in my opinion, I would trade Schoop, but I would ask for a lot though.
I think right now they have that flexibility. Whereas if they do try to put like Schoop on the line, I think you can be like, all right, we want a bucket. We want a bucket for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not going to be. It's not like you're trading Chris Sale for two of the top 5 prospects and a number 1 overall prospect in the MLB at the time. You're not doing that, but like you should ask for a good amount because you don't need to get rid of him. You want to, but you don't need to. And you want to for the right amount of,
they kind of have the upper hand right now. That's a big thing. I would not hate if Grossman does have a value, right? Like a value in the market right now, which I think he could. His batting average isn't good, but his on base percentage is good because he's
for power. And his problem is,
he hasn't done it like this before. This is by far his best season already.
Yeah. Is it just an anomaly type of year? You know what I mean? Where he just puts it all together for a year. It's one of those weird things. So, and then if you look at the whole MLB as a whole, I guess, a team like the Yankees, are they just going to sell? There's a team like the Nationals. The Nationals right now are telling teams that everybody but Juan Soto is on the table. So Max Scherzer, is a team going to go after Max Scherzer? I mean,
they're 9 or 10 games under 500, so they can certainly put everyone up for sale.
For sure. I mean, everybody but Juan Soto, they said, because obviously Juan Soto is still young and is a star. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting because I think some teams, I mean, even Trey Turner, but the weird thing is you've got guys like Trey Turner. Trey Turner just tested positive for COVID just now. So last year, a lot of the weird trade deadline stuff was happening where teams were like, do we even want to trade for other players if they've had COVID or if they have COVID? Like how does that look if we want to bring COVID into the locker room and then suddenly the whole team's got to sit? You know what I mean? So I don't know how that's going to affect him, because I definitely know the Nationals probably want to trade him. And that's another guy I would, if I'm the White Sox, I would consider for sure.
How much do you think Trevor Story, I mean, obviously you said you want Story for the White Sox, but what do you think you have to give up? Because to me, I think he's probably the top trade deadline prospect.
The White Sox would probably have to give up a guy like Jake Berger, who's a top 10 prospect in there, and then maybe a pitcher. I don't think they want to give up. They just sent Berger back down when they brought Jimenez back up, so they would have to give up. You got to give up probably a top 10 hitter and then a solid pitcher, whether it be a guy already on your team or a young pitcher as well. The problem the White Sox have is a lot of their prospects are already up, and are already contributing on a winning team. So it's like, do you want to lose guys that are already contributing, or they're filling a roster need now, and you really want to trade them if you're not going to fill it. So I don't really know what getting Trevor Story would cost, but my thing is I don't like when, and the White Sox are notorious for this, I don't like when teams have a chance, right? And they're putting together a crazy good year, and suddenly, then they don't go for it, right? Where it's like there's a glaring hole on your team, be it because of injury or just because of how your roster is set up, and you don't go for it. Then there's a glaring fix right there that you could get, and you don't go and do it. And that's why you end up not, maybe only making it to the division series. And that's frustrating when that type of thing happens. So
you have to, but the White Sox, I mean, obviously I think there's no doubt they're going to win the AL Central. AL Central is not good.
No, it's bad.
Yeah. So I think it's the White Sox is theirs. So I think if they feel like they know they're going to be in the playoffs, go for the glory, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you have to here. Like, I don't think anybody would sit there and fault Rick Hahn, who's their GM, if they went out and they got Trevor Story and he played second base, and then, if they still lost in the division round of the playoff, you'd sit there and go like, hey, they tried. You know what I mean? If they don't go do something and then they go out and lose in the first round of the playoffs or something, then it's like, look, then you got people coming for your head, because it's like, and we don't know how these things go. I mean, the Rockies might be asking for way too much for Story. You know what I mean? They might be asking,
especially because I got to think Story is going to be a borrow for this year. If the White Sox get Story, I don't think they're re-signing him.
No, I mean, it's a rental. It'd be a rental, and because they get Nick Madrigal back next year, and so I would definitely, if I'm the White Sox, I'm not looking for a long-term solution at second base, but I'm
looking for that extra push to get to the ALCS or the World Series.
Yeah, you're trying to get something that's going to win you a World Series title. So, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. There's a lot of teams out there that are, like I said, they're back and forth, and those are the teams that I think, if they just lose, a game tonight on Tuesday and a game tomorrow on Wednesday, suddenly they might just be selling on Thursday and Friday. You know what I mean? Or maybe if they're ripping off some wins in a row, maybe they're not selling as much. So,
well, that's kind of what leads me to believe the Tigers are going to sell, just because this bad week right before the trade deadline. I mean, they were literally the fourth best team in the AL since May 8th before this 4-game skid. Winning percentage wise. So it's like, okay, well, now they're playing the Twins again. They put the Twins and the Royals, they've done bad against it, and those are the teams that are below them in the division. So it's
I mean, the Tigers' problem is, I mean, again, they were hot against some bad teams, albeit, but they were hot, and they just, I mean, the water's going to find its level to an extent. They're not a great team. Their roster just isn't good yet. They're relying on rookie pitchers who are inconsistent. Good. I mean, they're solid. They're their best pitchers, but they're inconsistent, and they're relying on they have a bad defense, terrible defense, one of the worst defenses around. And then they also, they've got to rely on, an inconsistent bullpen and just a lineup that has too many easy outs. So I would say water finds its level. AJ Hinch is, in my opinion, I don't know if he's going to win it, but he deserves recognition for manager of the year. He probably won't win it just because they probably, especially if they sell some guys, they'll probably just get worse here in the coming months. But I don't think they care about that now.
I know every Tigers fan all over Twitter is screaming, get him on a lifetime contract.
Yeah, he's as good a manager as there is. So I don't know if he's going to win it just because it typically goes to a team that's
does well or
better,
has a huge comeback year. And
or if they were actually, I mean, their problem was they played so bad for the first month, and they played just really, really bad in like certain pockets of the season. And other than that, they've been good. So I don't know. It's interesting, but that does lead me to believe that they probably will be sellers. But I don't know. You never know. Maybe they'll try to keep everybody and just see what happens. But
yeah,
it sucks if you're a Tigers fan because it's like, man, you've seen this team get a lot better, and then if they just dump Schoop and a couple other guys, then you never know. But
yeah, it's at least exciting. You always can be like, at the end of the day, you're like, okay, it's still 3. If you get Dingler at catcher, Riley Green in outfield, and then Torkelson in the corner infield, it's like I'm good with this. I'll get over it tomorrow.
They're going to be I mean, there's a future there.